The rain-slicked windshield blurred the world outside as I tapped the map app again, my thumb hovering over the screen. It was supposed to guide me to the hardware store in Milford, just a quick detour off Route 17. But there it was, that same narrow street, popping up uninvited, Elm Hollow Lane, a forgotten stretch in the middle of nowhere. No stores, no houses, just endless asphalt fading into the dusk. I shook my head, figuring it was a glitch, and hit recalculate. The app reset, and there it was again, insistent like a whisper I couldn't ignore. My name's Alex Harper, and I've lived in Willow Creek my whole life, a quiet suburb an hour north of Pittsburgh, where the houses line up like neat rows of corn in fall. I'm a freelance graphic designer, the kind who works from home in sweatpants, sipping coffee from a mug that's seen better days. Mornings start with the hum of the coffee maker and the distant chatter of neighbors walking their dogs. Afternoons bleed into evenings with the soft glow of my laptop screen, deadlines blurring into the routine. It's predictable, comfortable even. The way the sun dips behind the oak trees in my backyard, casting long shadows across the kitchen table. Lately, though, I've been picking up extra gigs to save for a down payment on something bigger than this two-bedroom rental. Stability. That's what I'm after. No surprises. That Tuesday evening, the glitch started innocently enough. I'd been driving back from the post office, the kind of errand that barely registers, when my phone buzzed with a low battery warning. The map app, always open for those last-minute turns, flickered and rerouted me. Instead of heading straight home down familiar Elm Street, our main drag with its little diner and the gas station, I found myself veering onto a side road I didn't recognize. The voice from the speaker was calm, almost too polite. In 2 miles, turn left onto Elm Hollow Lane. I frowned, glancing at the GPS. Elm Hollow. That didn't sound right. Willow Creek didn't even have an Elm Hollow. Our streets were all numbered or named after presidents. The road narrowed quickly, trees crowding in like uninvited guests, their branches scraping the roof of my old Civic. Streetlights were sparse, just pools of yellow light every few hundred yards, and the pavement cracked under the tires. No mailboxes, no driveways, just empty lots overgrown with weeds that whispered against the undercarriage. I slowed to a crawl, peering through the rain-streaked glass. Recalculating, the app chimed, but it looped back to the same spot. My heart picked up a notch, not from fear exactly, but from that nagging itch you get when something's off kilter. I pulled over at what looked like an abandoned lot, the kind you'd see in those old maps of ghost towns, and killed the engine. The rain pattered steadily on the roof, the only sound besides my breathing. Stepping out, I shone my phone's flashlight down the street. Nothing. Just fog rolling in from the fields beyond, thick and cloying, like it was trying to swallow the light. I snapped a quick photo, habit from work, documenting the weird for later laughs, and turned back to the car. But as I slid into the driver's seat, the app refreshed on its own. There it was, my location pinned right on Elm Hollow Lane, with the suggested route looping back to itself. A chill settled in my chest, the kind that comes from staring at a screen too long. I must have fat-fingered the address earlier, I told myself, wiping the condensation from the window. Happens to everyone. I restarted the phone, watched the bars climb, and punched in my home address again. Clean slate. The drive home was uneventful after that, the streets of Willow Creek welcoming me back with their sodium lamps and the faint glow of living room windows. I parked in the driveway, the gravel crunching under the tires, and carried my groceries inside. The house smelled of last night's takeout, Chinese from the place on Main, and I flicked on the kitchen light, chasing away the early evening gloom. Dinner was simple. Microwave burrito, a beer from the fridge, and scrolling through emails while the TV murmured in the background. Some cop show, the volume low enough that it blended with the hum of the refrigerator. Normal, reassuring. But later, as I settled into bed with my laptop to finish a logo mock-up, the unease crept back. The app icon glowed on my home screen, unassuming as ever. On a whim, I opened it, just to test. Home to the hardware store tomorrow. Easy route, straight shot. No detours. Satisfied, I closed it and dimmed the lights. Sleep came slow, the rain tapping like fingers on the window pane. The next morning, Wednesday, dawned grey and drizzly, the kind of weather that makes Willow Creek feel even smaller, hemmed in by the hills. I grabbed coffee at the corner diner, waving to Marty behind the counter. He's been pouring refills since I was a kid, and chatted about the Steelers' chances this season. Everyday talk, grounding. Back in the car, errands on my mind, hardware store for some paint supplies, then the grocery run. The app fired up smoothly, voice guiding me onto Route 17. Traffic was light, semis rumbling past, and I relaxed into the drive. Radio tuned to the local station playing oldies. Then, halfway there, it happened again. In 1 mile, prepare to turn right onto Elm Hollow Lane. My grip tightened on the wheel. I blinked at the screen. Had I entered the wrong destination? No, the hardware store pin was clear as day. The turn approached, a nondescript exit ramp slipping between cornfields. I ignored it, staying on the highway, but the app persisted, beeping softly, rerouting with that same calm insistence. Elm Hollow Lane, 5 miles. Sweat beaded on my forehead despite the AC. This wasn't a glitch. Glitches didn't argue. I pulled into the next rest stop, a lonely patch of asphalt with vending machines and a payphone that no one used anymore. Hands shaking slightly, I deleted the app entirely, watching the icon vanish. Relief washed over me, sharp and fleeting. Re-downloading it took minutes, couldn't navigate without it in these parts, and the fresh install felt like a reset. Home screen clean, maps crisp. I drove on, arriving at the hardware store without incident, the fluorescent aisles, a welcome buzz of normalcy. Paint cans clinked in the cart. The cashier made a joke about the weather, and I laughed it off. But as I loaded the trunk, my phone vibrated, a notification from the app. Suggested route updated. Elm Hollow Lane awaits. I stood there in the parking lot, rain misting my jacket, staring at the screen. The street appeared again, closer this time, as if it had been waiting. No address. No reason, just that empty line snaking through the map like a vein. Why this place? Why now? I swiped it away, heart thudding, and drove home the long way, windows down to let the cool air clear my head. The suburbs unfolded around me, houses with trimmed lawns and kids on bikes, but for the first time they felt distant, like a set piece in someone else's story. That night, alone in the quiet house, I lay awake listening to the clock tick. The app sat silent on the nightstand, but I could feel it there, pulling like a tide. Tomorrow, I'd check the settings, maybe call tech support. It was nothing, I told myself, just code gone wrong. But deep down, in the space where doubts take root, I wondered if Elm Hollow Lane was trying to tell me something, or if something on that street was reaching out, one wrong turn at a time. Thursday morning broke with a stubborn fog that clung to Willow Creek like a bad habit, muting the colors of the neighborhood and turning the familiar into something vague and indistinct. I woke up earlier than usual. The sheets tangled around my legs from a night of fitful sleep. Dreams had come in fragments, endless roads looping back on themselves, the app's voice murmuring directions that led nowhere. I shook it off, splashing cold water on my face in the bathroom mirror, where my reflection looked back a little hollow-eyed. Coffee helped, strong and black, poured into that same chipped mug. Routine was my anchor. I'd stick to it. Work called from the laptop on the kitchen table, a new client brief waiting in my inbox. I dove in, sketching wireframes for a local bakery's website, the kind of straightforward project that paid the bills without much fuss. The house was quiet, save for the occasional creak of settling floorboards and the distant hum of a lawnmower starting up next door. Mrs. Ellis was at it again, her routine as predictable as the mailman's route. I glanced out the window. watching her push the mower in slow arcs across her postage stamp yard, her visor casting a shadow over her face. Normal, grounding. By noon, hunger pulled me away from the screen. The fridge offered slim pickings, leftover pizza from the night before, cold and congealed. I heated a slice in the microwave, the timer beeping like an accusation, and ate standing up, scrolling through my phone absent-mindedly. The app icon stared back from the home screen, innocuous now in the daylight. On impulse, I opened it, testing the waters. A quick search for the nearest coffee shop, nothing fancy, just the drive-through on the edge of town. The route loaded cleanly. Straight down Elm Street, past the library and the park where kids played after school, no detours, no surprises. I exhaled, tension easing from my shoulders. See? Just a one-off glitch. Tech support could wait. I had deadlines. The drive was short, the fog lifting enough to reveal the strip malls and fast food joints that dotted the outskirts. I ordered a large black coffee at the window, the barista's smile automatic through her headset. "Have a good one," she said, handing over the cup. Back on the road, the app guided me home without a hitch, its voice a neutral companion. I parked in the driveway, the engine ticking as it cooled, and carried the coffee inside. The afternoon stretched ahead, productive and unremarkable. I even tackled the laundry, folding shirts in the living room, while a podcast droned about true crime. Ironic, given my mood, but it kept the silence at bay. That's when the first real crack appeared. My phone buzzed on the coffee table, a notification sliding down from the top. Not an email or a text, but the app, unprompted. Nearby route suggestion. Elm Hollow Lane, 2 miles away. I froze. Slice of pizza halfway to my mouth. How? I hadn't opened it since the drive-through. The map showed my exact location, the pin hovering over my house like an unblinking eye, with a dotted line snaking out toward that phantom street. I swiped it away, heart rate spiking just a touch, and set the phone face down. Coincidence, maybe a cached route from yesterday. Phones did that sometimes, right? Lingering data. I pushed through the afternoon, forcing focus on the designs. Colors bled across the screen, warm earth tones for the bakery, nothing too bold. But every few minutes my eyes drifted to the phone, silent now, but heavy with possibility. Around 4, I needed a break, so I stepped out back for some air. The yard was modest, fenced in chain link, with a patchy lawn that I kept meaning to reseed. The oak tree loomed at the corner, branches swaying gently in the breeze. I sat on the steps, sipping the last of the coffee, now lukewarm. That's when I noticed the mailbox. Ours was a standard-issue blue box at the curb, but the flag was up, which it hadn't been since the mail came that morning. Odd. I walked over, lifted the lid. Empty. No letters, no junk mail, just the faint metallic tang of disuse. Shrugging it off as forgetfulness, maybe I'd flipped it by accident, I headed back inside. The house felt stuffier now, the air thicker, so I cracked a window in the living room. Evening crept in early with the overcast sky, shadows lengthening across the carpet. Dinner was takeout again. Thai from the place that delivered in under 30 minutes. I ate on the couch, flipping channels to a documentary about old highways, the kind that crisscrossed America like forgotten promises. The narrator's voice was steady, talking about Route 66 and how some stretches just vanished from maps over time. Fitting, I thought wryly, but it stirred that itch again. As the credits rolled, my phone lit up. Another notification. Update available. Explore Elm Hollow Lane. This time it came with a thumbnail image, a blurry satellite view of cracked pavement and encroaching woods. I hadn't searched for it. The app couldn't know. My thumb hovered over the delete button, but curiosity won out. I tapped the image, and the map expanded, zooming in on that empty stretch. No labels, no landmarks, just the lane curving into obscurity. A chill prickled my skin, not from cold, but from the way the details sharpened unnaturally, as if the app was rendering it just for me. I closed it quickly, standing to pace the room. The floorboards groaned underfoot, echoing in the quiet. Was this malware? Some prank from a hacked account? I'd read about apps collecting data, feeding you ads based on your habits, but this felt personal, insistent. I grabbed my laptop, searching online forums for map app glitch same route. Threads popped up, complaints about GPS loops in rural areas, usually blamed on poor signal or outdated maps. One user mentioned Elm Hollow, but it was a different state, some old logging road abandoned decades ago. Nothing concrete. Reassurance eluded me. Night fell fully, the neighborhood settling into its hush. Streetlights buzzed faintly outside, casting slatted patterns through the blinds. I double-checked the doors, a habit I'd picked up after too many late-night scary stories, and retreated to the bedroom. The app stayed on the charger by the bed, screen dark. Sleep tugged at me, but my mind raced, replaying the notifications like a loop. What if I just followed it once, see what was there, prove it was nothing? The thought lodged in my chest, equal parts dread and pull. In the small hours, I woke to a soft chime, the phone alerting in the dark. Rubbing sleep from my eyes, I reached for it. The screen glowed. Elm Hollow Lane, 5 miles, turn-by-turn directions ready. The map showed the route starting right from my driveway, arrow pointing left toward the unfamiliar. My pulse quickened, the room suddenly too still. I turned it off, burrowing under the covers, but the direction lingered, an invisible thread tugging me toward the unknown. Willow Creek slept around me, oblivious, but for the first time, home felt like the detour, the real road leading somewhere else entirely. Friday arrived with a deceptive calm. The fog from the day before burned off by a pale sun that hung low over Willow Creek like it was too tired to climb higher. I dragged myself out of bed around 8, the remnants of that midnight chime still echoing in my head. The house was cooler than usual, the thermostat reading a steady 68 degrees, but it felt drafty, as if the walls had let in something intangible overnight. I skipped the coffee ritual, opting for water straight from the tap, the cold rush grounding me as I stared out the kitchen window. The neighborhood stirred slowly, a car door slamming 2 houses down, the faint bark of a dog testing the morning air. Life going on, untouched. Work waited, but my focus splintered. The bakery project sat open on the laptop, cursor blinking accusingly in the design software. I tried sketching, adjusting fonts and layouts, but my mind wandered back to the app. It hadn't chimed since, screen dormant on the charger. Maybe the battery drain overnight had reset whatever glitch was festering in its code. I told myself to let it go, to treat it like a bad dream that fades with daylight. By 10, I'd made some progress, enough to email a draft to the client, and rewarded myself with a walk around the block. Fresh air, that's what I needed. The sidewalks were cracked but familiar, lined with maple trees shedding their last leaves in lazy spirals. I nodded to Mr. Patel, watering his flower beds, his hose spraying in a steady arc. "Nice day for a change," he called, and I managed a wave, forcing normalcy into my voice. Back home, the quiet pressed in again. I avoided the phone, leaving it in the bedroom while I rummaged through the garage for that old road atlas I'd inherited from my dad. It was buried under boxes of holiday decorations and spare tires, the cover faded and spine creased from years of backseat use. Flipping through the pages, I traced the lines around Willow Creek, Route 17 snaking north, Elm Street cutting through the heart of town. No Elm Hollow Lane, not even a hint of it in the grid of faded ink. Relief mixed with frustration. If it wasn't on the map, it had to be a digital phantom, some error in the app's database, pulling from outdated surveys or satellite glitches. I set the atlas aside, feeling a bit foolish for letting it rattle me so much. Lunch was a sandwich from the fridge, ham and cheese on wheat, nothing adventurous, and I ate at the table, flipping through a magazine about local history. Articles on the steel mills that once dotted the area, now rusting relics turned into artist lofts. Willow Creek had its share of forgotten corners. Paths overgrown after the economy shifted, but nothing like this insistent pull. The afternoon dragged, sunlight slanting through the blinds in golden bars that warmed the carpet. I tackled emails, lining up calls for next week, the routine a thin shield against the undercurrent of unease. Around 3, thirst pulled me to the kitchen for more water. As I filled the glass, my eyes caught the window reflection, my own face, superimposed over the backyard, looking back with a tightness around the eyes I hadn't noticed before. The phone was still in the bedroom, but curiosity gnawed. I retrieved it, thumbing the screen to life. Battery at 72%, notifications clear except for one, a weather alert about scattered showers later. No app pings. Emboldened, I opened the map deliberately this time, entering a simple destination, the library downtown, where I could pick up a book on app troubleshooting. The route loaded, straightforward, past the park and the old brick schoolhouse. No detours. I exhaled, slipping the phone into my pocket, and grabbed my keys. The drive was peaceful, radio playing a mix of classic rock, the kind with lyrics about open roads and endless horizons. The library smelled of aged paper and polished wood, shelves stretching like quiet promises. I browsed the tech section, pulling a slim volume on smartphone hacks, and checked out with a nod to the librarian, her glasses perched on the end of her nose. On the way back, the sky darkened prematurely, clouds bunching like bruises overhead. Rain started as a mist, then thickened, drumming on the roof. I pulled into the driveway just as it picked up, dashing inside with the book clutched under my arm. The house welcomed me with its familiar hush, lights flicking on to chase the gloom. I dried off in the hallway, hanging my jacket on the hook by the door. That's when the phone buzzed in my pocket. Not a call, but that soft, insistent chime. Heart sinking, I pulled it out. The screen showed the app open, unbidden with a route active, from the library straight to Elm Hollow Lane. But I'd closed it at checkout. I was sure of it. The map detailed the path I'd just driven, twisting it at the last turn toward that empty vein of road. Arrived, it declared, as if mocking the detour I hadn't taken. I sank onto the couch, staring at the device. How had it known? Location services were on shore, but this felt like more, predictive, almost aware. I delved into the settings, toggling permissions, clearing cache, even force-closing the app twice. Nothing stuck. It relaunched on its own, the icon pulsing faintly. Paranoia crept in, the kind that makes you question your own actions. Had I left it running? Tapped something by accident in the rain. The book lay unopened on the coffee table, its cover promising solutions I suddenly doubted. Outside, the rain intensified, sheets of it blurring the windows, turning the world into a watercolor smear. Dinner passed in a haze, pasta from a box, sauce simmering on the stove while I paced the kitchen. The steam fogged the air, mirroring the confusion in my head. I thought about calling a friend, maybe Jake from high school who worked IT downtown, but what would I say? My GPS is stalking me? It sounded ridiculous, the stuff of late-night memes, not real life. Instead, I ate alone, fork scraping the plate, the TV on low with a nature documentary about migratory birds, paths etched in instinct, unerring until disrupted. The parallel hit too close, and I switched it off. Twilight deepened, the rain easing to a steady patter. I retreated to the office nook in the spare room, laptop open to search deeper. Forums yielded more threads, users reporting phantom routes in apps, often tied to beta updates or signal interference from nearby towers. One post mentioned Elm Hollow specifically, a rural cutoff near Pittsburgh. Abandoned after a mill closure in the 80s, now just a service road for utility crews. Coordinates matched vaguely, but no one complained of persistence like mine. I bookmarked it, a crumb of context in the void. Yet as I scrolled, the phone chimed again, screen lighting the dim room. Another notification: optimize route, Elm Hollow Lane, optimized for current conditions. The map showed real-time rain overlays, the lane highlighted in blue, as if it were the safest path through the storm. Isolation settled like the dusk, the house cut off from the world by the downpour. Neighbors' lights winked on across the street, warm and distant, but I felt adrift, the app a silent anchor dragging me under. I powered it off completely, the screen going black with a finality that should have comforted. It did for a moment. Then, in the quiet, I heard it. Not a chime, but a faint vibration against the wood of the nightstand later that night. The phone, off, humming like a trapped insect. I didn't touch it. Instead, I lay in the dark, listening to the rain weave its tapestry against the roof, wondering if the lane was out there waiting, rain slicked and empty, or if it lived only in the glow of the screen, a loop I couldn't escape. The night stretched, heavy with unspoken questions, and sleep came in fits, haunted by directions that led only inward. Saturday morning arrived like a reluctant guest, the rain from the night before leaving Willow Creek sodden and subdued. I stirred awake to the sound of dripping gutters, the bedroom window streaked with rivulets that distorted the view of the backyard. My body ached from the tension of another restless night, muscles tight as if I'd been holding my breath in my sleep. The phone lay on the nightstand, powered off since the last chime, its black screen a void that seemed to watch me back. I didn't touch it. Not yet. Instead, I swung my legs over the side of the bed and padded to the bathroom, the floor cool under my feet. The mirror showed a man fraying at the edges, stubble shadowing my jaw, eyes shadowed deeper than the overcast sky outside. I splashed water on my face, letting the chill snap me into the day. Downstairs, the house felt larger in the grey light filtering through the curtains, rooms echoing with an emptiness that hadn't been there before. I brewed coffee mechanically, the machine gurgling like a distant conversation, and stood by the sink sipping it black. The atlas from yesterday sat open on the counter, its pages marked with a sticky note where I'd circled the approximate area near the old mill site. Elm Hollow Lane, a ghost on paper if it existed at all. I traced the lines with my finger, wondering how something so absent could feel so insistent. Work loomed, but I pushed it aside. Today was for answers, not deadlines. I'd drive out there myself, follow the coordinates from that forum post, see the nothing for what it was, and put this to rest. The phone stayed off as I dressed. Jeans, a flannel shirt against the damp chill, boots from the closet that still smelled faintly of last fall's leaves. I grabbed a notebook and pen, old-school tools to jot down whatever I found, and headed to the garage. The Civic started with a cough, wipers swiping away the condensation on the windshield. No app needed. I'd use the atlas and road signs, keep it analog. Backing out of the driveway, I caught sight of Mrs. Ellis across the street, hanging laundry on her line despite the drizzle. She waved, her smile tentative through the mist, and I waved back, the gesture feeling like a bridge to normalcy. The neighborhood unfolded in its quiet rhythm. Kids waiting for the school bus at the corner, a delivery truck rumbling past with its orange blinkers flashing. Route 17 stretched ahead, familiar asphalt, flanked by fields turning muddy under the rain. I followed the atlas's directions, turning off at the unmarked exit the forum had mentioned, a narrow ramp half hidden by overgrown brush. The road devolved quickly, pavement giving way to gravel that crunched under the tires, trees closing in like sentinels. No signs, no houses, just the steady patter of rain on the roof and the occasional splash from puddles. My pulse quickened, not with fear, but with that sharp anticipation of uncovering a secret. After a mile or so, the lane appeared on the left. Elm Hollow, confirmed by a rusted marker half buried in weeds. The letters faded but legible. I slowed, turning onto it, the car bumping over cracks that spider-webbed the surface. The street was as empty as the app had rendered it, endless, flanked by dense woods on one side and fallow fields on the other. No buildings, no lights, just the curve ahead, vanishing into the haze. I drove slowly, windows cracked to let in the earthy scent of wet soil, scanning for anything out of place. A deer bolted across at one point, whitetail flashing before it melted into the underbrush, but otherwise silence reigned. About halfway down, I spotted it, a pull-off, little more than a widened shoulder with tire tracks leading into the trees. Curiosity pulled me there. I parked and stepped out, the rain misting my hair. Notebook in hand, I jotted notes. The isolation, the way the air hung heavy, like it carried whispers from years past. Deeper into the woods, following a faint path, I found remnants, a chain-link fence sagging around what might have been a work site, concrete footings overgrown with vines. The mill's echo, perhaps. Abandoned equipment rusted into sculptures of neglect. No danger, just decay, the kind that time erodes without fanfare. Relief bloomed, tentative but real. This was it, the nothing the app fixated on. A glitch latching onto obscurity, nothing more. I snapped photos with my camera app, ironic, using the phone for that, and turned back, the walk brisking my steps. The car waited, faithful, and I slid in, shaking off the damp. Time to go home, delete the map app for good, and reclaim the day. The drive back was smoother, the atlas guiding me onto familiar roads. Willow Creek welcomed me with its modest sprawl, the diner on Main glowing like a beacon. I stopped for a late breakfast, eggs over easy, toast, and coffee that chased the chill away. Marty leaned on the counter, chatting about the weather's stubborn grip. "Sticking around longer than welcome," he said, and I nodded, the words landing heavier than intended. Back home, the house felt warmer, the laptop humming to life on the kitchen table. I powered on the phone finally, the screen flickering to notifications, missed emails, a weather update, nothing from the app. Heart steady, I opened the App Store, thumb poised over uninstall. But as the progress bar inched along, a final chime sounded, not from the phone, but deeper, like an echo in my chest. The screen glitched, the map app icon reappearing before it vanished, then reloading fresh as if nothing had happened. I stared, breath catching. The home screen showed a new widget I'd never added, a mini-map centered on Elm Hollow Lane, with a single route pinned from my current location, looping back to the pull-off I'd just visited. Recent destination. It labeled it, time-stamped to minutes ago, but I'd driven without it. The phone had been off, tucked in my pocket, silent as stone. I dropped the phone on the table, stepping back as if it might bite. The kitchen spun slightly, the coffee turning sour in my stomach. How? GPS couldn't track without power, couldn't know the path I'd taken on foot, unless... The thought trailed off, unwilling to form. The app's voice didn't speak, but I could almost hear it in the quiet, recalculating, always one step ahead. I snatched the device, deleting again, this time factory resetting the whole phone. A nuclear option, wiping contacts and photos I'd back up later. The process dragged, the screen a whirl of blues and whites, but when it rebooted, the app was gone, clean, empty. Afternoon waned into evening, the rain picking up again in fits. I worked fitfully, the bakery designs blurring under my eyes, but the unease lingered like a fog that wouldn't lift. Dinner was simple. Soup from a can, heated on the stove while I stared out at the darkening yard. The oak tree swayed, branches like fingers tapping secrets. Night settled, the house creaking in the wind, and I locked the doors twice, a ritual against the intangible. Bed called early, the sheets a temporary refuge. Sleep came in waves, broken by dreams of roads that bent inward, leading to a center that was my own reflection, endlessly rerouting. In the deepest hour before dawn, the phone buzzed on the nightstand, new, reset, but somehow alive. The screen glowed unbidden, a blank map, No labels, just a single line snaking across it. Elm Hollow Lane, etched not in pixels, but in the space between, pulling me back. I turned away, burying my face in the pillow, but the pull remained, a quiet certainty that some paths don't end. They wait, patient as the rain, for the next turn. Outside, Willow Creek slept on, its streets mapped and known, but in the dark, I wondered if one empty stretch had already claimed its place in me, a detour from which there was no recalculating away.